Is living in the Motor City better than living in Michigan's capital? Well, I'm gonna answer that in this next video. We're gonna be doing Lansing versus Detroit, Detroit versus Lansing. Which place is better to potentially live at? I'm gonna be talking about the pros and cons of both, comparing and contrasting. And be sure to stay tuned until the end because the very last one I feel is the most important. So let's get started with this next episode of Lansing, Michigan Life right now. Hey there folks, Troy Seifert here with the Capital Area Real Estate Specialist in the Greater Lansing, Michigan area. I'm a top producing realtor in the Greater Lansing, Michigan area, and I get phone calls from people all over the country who are just like you watching this channel, even all over the world. People who are looking to potentially move and relocate to the Greater Lansing, Michigan area. And if that is you, I would greatly appreciate it if you would contact me at any time. All my contact information is in the description below, so call me, text me, email me, schedule a Zoom call with me, whatever you prefer. If there's any that I do prefer going on Zoom to be able to talk with you about your real estate goals. So contact me at any time. I would love to be able to talk with you. Also, if you want to be a part of the #1 real estate channel in the Lansing, Michigan area, please subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. We have a vast library of so many videos about the Greater Lansing, Michigan area, all the different suburbs and places to go and things to do. You're definitely not going to want to miss when we have new episodes of Lansing, Michigan Life going live, and we have new episodes going live once or twice a week. Also, if you like the content of this video, I would appreciate a like, a thumbs up, because it helps me see like what type of content that you like. Okay, so let's dive right in here. Lansing versus Detroit. When people first think of Michigan, I think the first thing that comes into people's minds is Detroit, of course. They honestly, I mean, maybe Grand Rapids, but honestly, Detroit. And a lot of people think that Detroit is the capital city of Michigan if they don't remember grade school geography about US capitals, right? I kind of compare it to if you're watching this channel from Pennsylvania, I kind of can compare it to, because I grew up in Pennsylvania, I kind of compare it to Pennsylvania because everyone assumes that Philadelphia is the capital of Pennsylvania when in fact Harrisburg is. And everyone's like, what's Harrisburg, right? Yes, a lot of people hear mostly about Detroit. And especially in the last, I would say 15 to 20 years when the whole recession happened nationwide, Detroit really took a fall. Because when I looked at Detroit back in the 90s, they were like in the top 3 or 4 most populated cities around the nation. And what happened? Well, of course, the auto crisis happened with Ford and GM and Chevrolet, which that's why they call Detroit the Motor City, obviously. And all those hard times happened. So many people lost their jobs and people kind of fled. And so Detroit really, especially in the last 10 years, has really built themselves up and they're trying to recover. Right now, Lansing, the metro area, if you've been watching my videos, Lansing metro area is around 500,000 people, and Detroit metro area is around 4.4 million. Right now, currently though, for a metropolitan area, that puts it in at number 12 nationwide. I mean, not quite up there to being one of the top 5 statuses, because now you got all these cities in Texas, Dallas, all these other cities have grown. Detroit kind of went down, but it's kind of great to be a part of a underdog story, right? To see a city rebuild, and Detroit definitely has done that. This is gonna be kind of fun because, I mean, 4.3 million compared to 500,000, there's gonna be some obvious pros and cons to each. But I do feel that with Lansing and Detroit, there are definitely some good things to think about, because people who are watching this channel, you might be looking in the vicinity of Michigan and you might be like, well, what's Lansing all about, right? And then you hear about Detroit and you're like, well, where are all the suburbs in Detroit, which is this southeastern part. So hopefully this is just as you're looking through your whole process of potentially relocating, maybe Detroit has been on your mind and maybe this will give you some things to consider and ponder. So the first thing I want to address is the cost of living for both. The cost of living for Lansing versus Detroit. In the greater Lansing area for housing, let's get the average cost of housing. As of last month, which is July 2025, we're around $250,000 for an average price point in the entire greater Lansing area. So that's taking the city of Lansing and all the suburbs, which is about 4 counties. So Detroit metro area, it's around 6 counties, so much larger, 4.4 million people. Detroit, it surprised me. Detroit's is around $100,000 for the average price point, like around $100,000. And when I did my research through this, I was like, is this really accurate? And I guess just with a lot of the rebuilding that needs to be done in some of those downtown Detroit areas, it can be a great place for flippers to be able to, rehab some houses. You have suburbs of Detroit that are not, maybe 30, 40 minutes out from the downtown area that could be much higher and closer to what the national average might be. But when they take the entire Detroit metropolitan area, that's around 100,000. So cost of housing, yes, definitely more affordable. As far as property taxes go, Detroit is slightly higher if you're in Detroit City versus Lansing City, because Detroit City, they are the ones that have the highest taxes in the entire state of Michigan. However, Lansing, it's not far behind. So I would say both of those are even as far as property taxes go. The biggest complaints I hear about living in Detroit is the city income tax, but Lansing's is, if you live in the city of Lansing, that's your taxing authority, you owe 1% of your income to the city of Lansing. You pay that through your paycheck. In Detroit, it is 2.4%. If you live in the city of Detroit, you're gonna pay a 2.4% city income tax. Okay, so the housing prices are a little bit less, but these are some hard numbers here because that's a 1.4% higher than what the Lansing city tax would be. So if you're a non-resident, and let's say you work in Detroit City, which there's a lot of businesses in downtown Detroit. Same thing with lots of businesses in downtown Lansing. If you're a non-resident and you work in Lansing, it's 0.5% of your income. In Detroit, it's 1.2% of your income. So if you are looking to move to the Motor City, like work in the Motor City or move to there, those are some things to keep in mind. Realtors that are in the Detroit area are gonna know a little bit more of the specifics of the taxing authorities, things to look out for. I'm the professional for anything with Lansing and anything in Greater Lansing within a 30, 40 mile radius. I'm kind of giving you the generic things for you to consider, and then maybe in Detroit, there are some people that I could probably refer you over to who I know and trust that could potentially help you out with some of those specifics. The third thing though, and this is something a lot of people don't think about when they move to Detroit, auto insurance is significantly higher in Detroit. How do I know this? Well, I used to be in insurance before I was in real estate. I started real estate in 2017. Before I was in real estate, I was with State Farm with auto insurance. I did that for 6 years. And whenever I quoted people, Oakland County, Montcalm County, those are some counties that are in Detroit, and I compared it to like a city in Lansing, it was like another $150 a month more for auto insurance. Wherever you go, if there's a higher population, I found that Michigan auto insurance rates are always going to be higher. And if you haven't watched my auto insurance video, Lansing Auto Insurance, definitely take a look at that. As far as Detroit's goes, the higher the population, the higher your auto insurance is going to go because of more claims. There could be more theft claims, more just other claims other than like just getting in car accidents. But if you do have more bumper to bumper traffic, they're more prone to being in more accidents. Keep in mind auto insurance as well, that Detroit is significantly higher. Okay, so now we're out of costs of living. Let's get into entertainment. Things to do in Detroit versus Lansing. Some of this might be a little bit more obvious because bigger cities, you should have more things to do, right? So Detroit, tons of things to do. I'm even wearing the Detroit Tigers polo here. If you've been watching my channel, I am a true Philadelphia Phillies fan, but I do have my Detroit gear. I have a Detroit Lions honorary fan. Like if the Philadelphia Eagles don't make it to the Super Bowl or the playoffs, then I will wear that honorary Lions shirt. You have major professional sports teams. You have the Tigers, you have the Lions. I really want to say the Bears, but that's Chicago. So you got the Lions, you got the Tigers, you got the Red Wings, and you got the Detroit Pistons for basketball. And you have these huge stadiums that you can go to. And Detroit, even recently, they've created some really nice stadiums. Comerica Park, I've been there with my son for Detroit Tigers baseball games. And it's great because the Tigers are doing really well this season. It seems like the Detroit teams are just doing better than what they used to. Detroit Lions, there's so many jokes about the Detroit Lions never making it anywhere. The last couple of years, Detroit Lions have made the playoffs and people have been kind of excited about the Detroit Lions. So you do have some teams that you could root for and be extremely close to them if you lived in that city. They also have casinos. They have a much larger zoo. They have larger malls like in the suburbs. You have anything at your disposal. In Lansing, we have a minor league baseball team. As far as like around the country with our minor league baseball stadium that we have, we get great ratings for the Jackson Field, Lansing Lugnuts baseball stadium that we have. We have Big Ten sports with Michigan State University. Detroit has some universities, but they're not as large as Michigan State, being able to have that. So we have Big Ten basketball games, Big Ten college football games. We do have a zoo, but it's smaller. We have a children's museum that's out there, but again, it's smaller, but it's gotten rave reviews and was voted as Newsweek's #1 children's museum, according to a reader poll. Lansing's been able to put themselves on the map with all the different things to do. It's on a smaller scale. So if you're the type of person that needs to be involved in like the hustle bustle, you're a huge sports fan, you don't care about the minor league teams or the college football teams, then yeah, maybe Detroit's for you. If you want to be close to every single restaurant and you will have so many options in Detroit. But in Lansing, you'll still have those options for sure, but there's just not going to be as many of them, and they're not going to be as grand of a scale. Like even for theater, they have the Fox Theater in Detroit. In East Lansing, we have the Wharton Center. Like we have the same things, it's just on a smaller scale. Fox Theater would, from my understanding, has some of the national tours that come from Broadway, and they have some musical concerts. Wharton Center, same thing, just smaller scale, and they have the national tours that come there as well. Just whatever you prefer and whatever type of venue. Let's get into transportation for both. Let me start off with Lansing since I started off with Detroit the last time. So Lansing with transportation, I mean, we do have a bus system that goes throughout. We do have an airport, the Capital Region International Airport. It's located towards the north central, northwest side of town. And it's great to have that international airport, but it is on the smaller scale. And when I compare it to Detroit and their transportation, like they have like a trolley car that goes in the downtown for 3.3 miles. I think that's cool to have. It's just like a little metro, but they just take little stops along the downtown. They also have an amazing airport. I love the Detroit Metropolitan Airport that's there. And Delta is a hub there, so you can get pretty affordable tickets with Delta, but they do have some of the other major airlines there as well. From Lansing, the airport from Lansing is about an hour and a half, depending on traffic, to be able to get there. But the thing that's cool in Lansing, here's a little tip for you if you didn't know, there is a bus that starts out in East Lansing. It's called the Michigan Flyer, and they'll take like 3 or 4 stops on the way, but it'll take you directly to the Detroit airport, and you pay, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 bucks to be able to take it one way, but then you don't have to pay for any parking and everything's right there. So some people really do take advantage of that because a lot of times it is significantly cheaper just to use that and to have somebody else drive you there. But Detroit definitely reigns supreme in transportation. But obviously they're a bigger city. You would think like, okay, you gotta have a better airport. And the thing that I would also point out with Detroit, and more so with the airports, Detroit and Lansing, we have a lot of corporations in Lansing. We have the state employees that come here, so government employees that fly into the airport. We have GM, we have insurance companies. So we do have corporations that help support having an international airport, but the rates are a lot more expensive. So we end up getting a lot of business travelers because we are the capital. But if you're looking to fly out of Lansing as going on a family vacation, what always typically happens is you're not gonna have a direct flight to your destination unless you fly to Orlando. They do have an airline that flies directly to it, but it's only certain days of the week. But the major airlines, you always have to go to Detroit, and then you go from Detroit to your final destination. You always have a stop. Sometimes that can be a pain, right? It's just better to go to Detroit and then just have a nonstop flight, potentially. Again, weighing the pros and cons, it seems like Detroit would be superior in that, as well as having more entertainment options. But again, it's what you prefer. Some people love going inside the Lansing airport because it's so small and you don't have to deal with a huge line of security, and it's super easy to be able to go in there because there's not a ton of gates. And I know some people that just prefer that because they don't like to feel the stress of travel day going to the airport. So again, it's what you prefer. The next thing I want to get into is traffic. And this is where Lansing, in my opinion, way better than Detroit on. Obviously, again, Detroit has way more people there, but Detroit is also surrounded by tons of highways. And I just recently had to fly out of Detroit airport with my family. And when we got over to the airport, we had to sit in traffic for a good, it slowed us down 20, 25 minutes, which for some of you, you're like, well, I had to sit in traffic for an hour, hour and a half for rush hour. That's not that bad. But for Detroit, I was sitting there going, man, like this is not how Lansing is. The times that I sit in traffic in Lansing are if there's an accident, that can sometimes happen. That happens anywhere though. And the other times that I might sit in traffic, it's construction season and it's a major highway and they're going down from 2 lanes to 1 lane and it's a 70-mile-an-hour road. You might see traffic backed up a little bit, but other than that, you can usually count on getting to your destination within the parameters of the time that you want to, like within 20, 25 minutes. So that's the thing I love about Lansing, is that it's surrounded by highways. highways and you can get to where you want to pretty quickly in comparison to a major city like Detroit, and it's more spread out and there's just more traffic everywhere, more stops, and especially when construction season happens, it's even worse. So something to keep in mind, the traffic is going to be a lot better, trust me, in the greater Lansing area than it would be in Detroit. And I've had family members tell me that when they come to visit here, they're like, traffic here is awesome. Like there's never any sort of traffic jams, typically within greater Lansing area. All right, the last thing, and this is the thing that I think is so important as I kind of wrap up here, has to do with location of where it's located. Why does location matter? Well, location matters in the mitten, and this is my good old, you're gonna see people in Michigan doing this a lot. So here is the map that I typically like to use. I use my hand. People in Michigan like to use their hand for a map. This might not be the first time you see me do this, but Lansing is right here in the center. Detroit is more southeastern in some of the suburbs. And I've said this again and again, and I feel like this is one of the top things that's amazing about Lansing, Michigan, is you are central to anything in the state. Wherever you want to go, it's not going to take you nearly as long as if you're on the west side of the state where Grand Rapids is, or the eastern side of the state, which is where Detroit is. The other thing you had to keep in mind with Detroit, you will be closer to the Canadian border. Okay, you have to have a passport to cross the Canadian border, but you'll be closer to Canada and some spots in Canada to be able to get in there. You don't have that in Grand Rapids, obviously, but Lansing, you're a little further out. You might be closer to Frankenmuth, which has the world's largest Christmas store, depending on where you're at in Detroit and depending on traffic, but that's a little closer than what Lansing would be. And you would be closer to Cedar Point. If you're not familiar with amusement parks, especially in the Midwest, Michigan's not known for having the most amazing theme parks. We have it on the western side here, Michigan's Adventure. So Lansing would be closer to that theme park, but Cedar Point is in Ohio, the northern part of Ohio, and you probably would only be about an hour to an hour and a half away from Cedar Point, which has the most roller coasters out of any amusement park, has the mega coasters there. I went to Cedar Point all the time in high school and in college. Now, I feel being in my 40s, I don't know how I would be on all the roller coasters. Who knows? Who knows? I don't even want to know. Who knows the next time I will be there. So from Lansing, Cedar Point's like 2.5, 3 hours, but Detroit, way closer. So if you're all about the theme park vibe, you'll be closer to Cedar Point. However, with Lansing being centrally located, you're closer to places like Chicago, which is in Illinois, then Detroit would be an hour and a half further out. You would be closer to all the Lake Michigan lake towns. Because if you're gonna go to a lake in Detroit, it's gonna be a good 3.5, 4 hours to get to Lake Huron. In Lansing, it would take you about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on where you're wanting to go along the coast. But you have all these options to be able to go to Lake Michigan. And if you've never been swimming in a lake, it's just like the beach. I mean, sometimes you can see, like maybe the waves might not be as high, but it just has the feel still of a beach on the East Coast or on the West Coast in the Pacific Ocean. You just don't have the salt water. But these lake towns, they're awesome to be able to go to, and it's awesome that in Lansing, I can be an hour and a half away from that. Detroit, I'm gonna be further away from all that stuff. So again, with the location being where it is, I feel like Lansing being in the center of it all reigns superior over Detroit, because Detroit does have all the, that could be a weekend destination place for anyone anyway with all the stuff that's there to do, right? But if you want to have different options, with Lansing being the center, I feel like the location is just awesome for that. You can comment below and tell me if I'm crazy and if you're like, hey, Detroit's still way better than Lansing. I don't agree with this. I feel like you're being too easy on Lansing. Let me know. But if you do want to subscribe to the #1 real estate channel in the Lansing, Michigan area, please subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like the content. Also, if you are looking to move here in 9 days, 90 days, 90 months, I was gonna say 90 months, or 9 months, however long you want to move here, feel free to contact me anytime. Call me, text me, email me, or schedule a Zoom call with me. I would love to be able to talk with you about your real estate needs, wants, just to be able to get to know you face to face, especially on Zoom. All right, folks, so again, thank you so much for watching this. I love doing these versus series, and hopefully you enjoy them. Again, drop a comment if you do like this as well. And until next time, make it a great day. Take care.